I made my dad choose between me and his new family. My father, 52, and I, 25F, along with my 3-year-old Cocker Spaniel, Moxie, live in my mom's ancestral house that I inherited along with other assets when she died when I was 16 due to cancer. My father got married to his high school sweetheart a few months ago while he was on a trip with his friends. They've been in contact for almost 2 years now. I was shocked, but it's his life, and if he's happy, then I am okay with it. They moved in a week after the small wedding that I wasn't even invited to since I had no idea they were even dating or that he was dating. She, my dad's wife, whom we'll call Steph, 51, came with baggage, I mean twin stepsisters, 20F, Lizzie and Lexi, fake names, and their 2 chihuahuas, Gucci and Hermes. They go to the state college nearby and thought it would save them money if they lived here instead of paying rent. My dad asked if it was okay and stated that the house was big enough for us. 7 bedrooms, 8.5 baths, a basement, and a huge yard with a pool. To make my dad happy, I said yes. Big mistake. The first issue was the argument of me moving to a smaller room since my room has the second biggest closest out of all the rooms in the house. She needed it to store all her luxury bags and clothes, etc. I said no. I told her it's been my room since I can remember, and she's not making me move when it's my house. My dad compromised with her that he'll give his side of the closet to her, while his things are in the other room. The second issue, the twins have this habit of barging into people's rooms without knocking, and that includes my office, currently working from home due to COVID. Lexi walked in one time wearing a bikini looking for something while I was in the middle of a business meeting. She literally walked behind me where everyone could see her. I was pissed off and embarrassed. Third, their dogs are not potty trained and would leave poops and pee around the house, and the twins wouldn't even clean up after them. They're also very aggressive towards Moxie. I found Moxie one time with a scratch on her left eye, which the other 2 dogs would usually nip at when they get the chance. Fourth, all the family photos in the house were removed and put in the attic without my approval, including my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my mother's family photo, my baby pictures, etc. I took my time to put them all back to where they belonged. This happened a few times. 2 days ago, Steph did it again, but this time she replaced them with her pictures, the twins, and her family, etc. Steph and I had a heated argument about it. I told her that she can't do anything regarding the decorations, etc. in my house without my approval, and that her daughters should also learn how to knock on doors and have their dogs potty trained. She said that they can do whatever they want in her house and that she will be making up house rules that we will all follow since she thinks I'm such a wild animal doing whatever I want and that I was not raised properly due to having a bad, useless mother. I was livid. That's an understatement. I told her that she could pack her things along with her twins because I was kicking her out. She said that I had no right to kick them out of her house. I told her, and I quote, "Lady, you are living under my roof. This is my house. I inherited it from my mother, and right now you, your twins, and your dogs are trespassing. Get out before I call the cops." My dad got home early that day after Steph told him what happened. I told him my side of the story. He said that they're still getting used to the house, and the move here was difficult for them. I told him about all the issues surrounding them, but he kept insisting that it was going to get better, and that to just give them some time. I told him that I've put up with all their shit, and I've had enough. Enough is enough. He was defending them more, taking their side. So, I told him that he could either move out with them or stay, and that he had until the end of the week. Did I do the right thing here, making my dad choose between me and his new family? I literally gave them a chance, and I've put up with so much of their shit for the past few months. What she said about my mother was my breaking point. There's no way that she will disrespect her in the house where she grew up in, where I grew up in. Here's the update. I spoke with my mother's previous lawyer, Amy, fake name, about the issue on Saturday and asked if there's a way to contest the will. She showed me the documents and I both signed an agreement, in summary, that we agree on what was left to us and that we will not be contesting it in the future. Mom for the win. She also advised to give them at least 30 days to find a place and move out to avoid any legal troubles, etc. So, inheritance issue is solved. Saturday night, I was supposed to have dinner with just my dad. Apparently, a private discussion between father and daughter is a whole family affair. Steph and twins were there. To make it quick and to end the misery, I stated that I spoke with Amy regarding the house and other legal issues. I also added that they have 30 days to find a place and move out. Steph tried to object, but Dad shut her down by saying that we can fix the issue and that we can all go to family therapy and that we just need time to get to know each other. Cue my eyes rolling. I informed him that it's been months since they moved in, and not once did they try to be family unless they need something. I put my foot down. Enough is enough. So, I asked him if he's going with them or staying so I'll know which items he'll be taking. He asked if I'm kicking him out, which I told him I'm not, that he's free to choose to wherever he goes, but I told him that he should not expect me to keep in contact with him if he decides to leave. Steph asked why I'm kicking him out of his house. I told her that I inherited my house from my mother. She said that he told her that I live him. I guess she thought that I live with my dad in his house. Big misunderstanding on their part. Lexi argued that it's going to be hard to move since they're finishing up spring semester and that finals are in a couple of weeks. I just smiled and said to better hurry and find a place. I left after that. Yesterday, Easter Sunday, I invited my boyfriend and his family and my 2 best friends over to celebrate Easter Sunday. My dad has been calling me, and I didn't bother answering the call. He tried to invite me to spend the day with them. As far as I'm concerned, the only family I have right now are my 2 best friends, my boyfriend, and his family. It was a good Sunday. We did some egg hunting and a few games, and had a big dinner, which I haven't had in a long time. I felt right. Anyway, right now I'm finishing up on documenting everything that's worth over $500 in the house. I had a few people over to help document them. All locks have been changed. I only gave a copy to my BF. Don't worry about my dad asking him about the key. He doesn't approve of him since he's middle class. I also hired professionals to install a security system around the house and property, and I am scheduled to meet with someone regarding the fences and gate. I have not tapped into the fund that my mom left since I started college to help with tuition, dorm, and other expenses, but this is an emergency and it calls for it. All the family pictures, portraits, etc. are currently in a storage. All other valuables that are small are in a safety deposit box. All documents are in a water and fireproof safe that requires a key and pin to open, currently in my room. I'm trying to take all the precautions and advise that you guys wrote on the comment section in my previous post. Thank you for those. So, that's about it for now. Not really sure why Dad is choosing to be with them than me, his own flesh and blood. I'll update this if there's any news or something stupid happens, but I've come to accept that for some unknown or unexplainable reason, they're more important to him than me. It's hard, since he's the only family I have left here, and I'm really not that close with his side of the family. So, once they move out, I am cutting contact with them. He's a grown man, and he can decide whatever the fuck he wants to do with his life. Thanks for all the support and well wishes. My friend and his wife passed away a year ago, and I became the guardian and eventually adoptive father of their daughter, and it's been worth every second. It's been a year since I became the guardian and eventually adoptive father of my friend's daughter, who's 10 now. I know. Unusual. I've known her almost her whole life, and she's always been a great kid, so chipper and happy. I remember when I was helping my friend remodel part of his house, she was 8 at the time. She was always looking to help, and either I or he would give her small jobs like measuring stuff or marking measurement lines for something we had to cut. Made her feel important, and I even gave her my hat when we finally finished the job as a thank you. But the happiness wouldn't last. She lost both of her parents last year in a car accident. She was at home with a babysitter, thankfully. And at the hospital, the only family member who came was her grandparents. No one else. Not an aunt, uncle, cousins, no one. She had no one to take care of her except her grandparents, but they had health problems of their own that would have made taking care of her extremely difficult. That night in the hospital was the first time she ever hugged and held on to me as soon as I came into the room, and I told her, "I know, sweetie, I'm here." And so after deliberation with social services and the family, I was the only real person capable of taking care of her, an outsider, a stranger, most people would think. But after social services cleared me and my place fit for care and habitation, she moved in with me. I made it clear to her from day one that I wasn't trying to be her dad or her mom. I never could be. I was simply a caretaker and someone who cared about her and wanted her to be safe and happy. That's all. She had a breakdown that night and fell asleep in my arms from the exhaustion of the whole situation, and I carried her to bed. I then went to my boss later that week and told him the situation and how I didn't want the promotion I knew I was soon to get, because that would require me to travel more, and that just wasn't an option now because I had different priorities. She slowly came around to me and knew I was someone she could trust, but other family on my side found the situation a bit odd. A single man taking care of some girl that isn't even his? What's up with that? Is the general vibe I got from my family and some more condescending or "you're not the right person" messages. Dead serious. They didn't like it. So I said fuck it and cut communication with most of them. The only people left being my brother, sister, and my parents, who she's all met and loves BW. And as of October 2020, I officially adopted her as my own. We had a long discussion about it beforehand, and I made it clear that just because I was legally her dad, she didn't have to call me that, and she didn't want to. But she did want to stay with me, and that was fine by me. The day in the courtroom when it was all finalized was a little bittersweet for obvious reasons. But I kept her promise, and we visited her where her parents are buried just to say hi. Even I got a little emotional trying to just say some kind words, and she held my hand to calm me down a little. I would say we're doing pretty good now. She likes when I talk about her dad and me growing up together, and I even gave her some old photos of us when we were teenagers. I also told her about my time in the military. Her dad was Air Force, and I was in the Army as what is now called a 91F, Small Arms Artillery Repairer. Basically, I worked for and reported to a quartermaster on base, and we tested and repaired weapons ranging from pistols to assault rifles to even huge cannons and weapons that went on AC-130 airplanes. Trust me, it wasn't always that exciting, haha, but I liked it and was considering getting an engineering degree in college, but instead opted for a major in IT and minor in business. One of my fondest memories of me and her thus far would be from last year, about a month before she was adopted. I was on a Zoom meeting with other project managers, which is what I still am, from my company, including my boss, and turned my camera and mic off when I went to the bathroom. I come out, and she's sitting in my chair talking up a storm to everybody, asking what they're all talking about and what they're doing, and it's just the cutest thing. No shyness whatsoever. She's always been like that with people and is probably why she has so many friends. It wasn't easy making her leave, and she still occasionally hovers in the background, curiously trying to listen in to my conversations, even on the phone when I'm doing work. Sorry if this dragged on. I was just looking to get this out there and hopefully brighten up someone's day. I haven't yet crossed that line and told her I love her like she's my own niece or daughter. But she knows how much I care about her and never hesitates to tell me if something's wrong. It's been rather hectic at times also, like when she accidentally caused a small grease fire. Don't worry, I was there the whole time, and she didn't get hurt at all, and we laughed about it and blackened one of my mom's pans, but I can't stay mad at her, not for a second. I'll close this by just saying that I'll always be there for her no matter what it is, and that she's the most important thing in my life to me now. If you got this far, thanks for reading, and I hope your day is a little brighter. Edit 1. Thank you all sincerely for your kind words of appreciation and praise and all the awards, whatever they do, LOL. This really means a lot to me. I should clarify something though. I do love her. I really do. But she's not mine. Not by blood anyways. I'm not her father and never will be. I know I said I told her that I wasn't trying to replace either of her parents, and I'm not. I'm just afraid that I'll say the wrong thing. That if I do say I love her, she'll say something like, "Why would say that? You're not my dad." And our relationship will kind of taper off. I don't want that at all. I know her just as well as her parents did, but I can't judge what her reaction will be or when the best time to say it is. It's a mistake I can't afford to make, but it's eating me up inside not getting it out. Edit 2. Again, thank you all for your continuous support. I just wanted to say that, after seeing what the majority of you thought I should do, I think I'll finally do it and tell her I love her, hopefully sometime today. I stayed up all night thinking about what I all might say and think I have something in my head prepared, but I'll just be honest. Wish me luck. I was dead wrong about my sister's BF. My younger sister and I are inseparable. I love her to death and have always stuck up for her growing up, especially against her bullies in school. I can be overprotective at times. About 5 years ago, she began talking to this guy she matched with on Tinder. She lived with me at the time, and I could hear her giggling and talking to him on the phone almost every night. It warmed my heart to hear her so happy. She showed me his pictures one day and I was horrified. Very handsome guy, but everything about him just spelled trouble. The way he dressed, his tattoos, posing with guns and smoking weed. I definitely judged that book's cover and I told her, you should drop him before he drops you. She was pissed at me for about a week. They began dating and she moved out about 8 months into their relationship. I never met him, but she suggests to let him meet the entire family for Thanksgiving. I gave a half-hearted, yay, and left it at that. I didn't trust anything about him. I can definitely see myself being a bitch the day I met him and was ready. Thanksgiving comes, I meet him. He was all smiles and extremely polite, but part of me still had those pics in my head and thought he was being fake. My parents met him, they loved him, even my dad. He hates boyfriends. He meets my little brother. They spent time talking about video games. Our grandmother, he practically inhaled one of her sweet potato pies. It truly is amazing, bless that woman, and asked if she could make him more another time. Melted her heart. Many other things. He seemed like the perfect man. I still wasn't convinced. My sister excused herself to the bathroom and he asked me to step outside with him. I was confused, but agreed anyway. Your sister told me about how you felt about me. I understand how I might come across as a bad choice, but I really do like your sister. She was hurt that you didn't like me, so I wanted to speak to you personally. Threw me for a loop. I was shocked. He was super mature, not an ounce of malice. He just wanted some clarity. We talked outside for about 10 minutes. I was convinced it wasn't an act. He cared deeply for my sister. He earned my respect by pulling me to the side. I apologized for the things I said about him without even meeting him. Totally unacceptable on my part. He offered me a hug. I was the only female in the house who didn't hug him, and I gave him one. He then said, "We're going to be in-laws pretty soon. Let's not kill each other just yet." He got a good laugh out of me. We went back inside and the night got better and better. He wasn't joking about the in-law part. They got married a year and a half later and gave my sister twin baby girls. He's the sweetest guy and is a great father. My nieces are the love of my life, and you can tell they are raised by strong parents. Me and my sister are closer than ever. Sorry for being such a bitch, Liv. Your husband is awesome. I think I screwed up, or the cake. I tried posting this in Surviving Infidelity, but the bot didn't like it. Could really use insight. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, 30F, for 5 years, and it feels like in the last year she's become a complete stranger. We were both established when we met, and at first it felt like we shared the same values. I went to a trade school and learned a very technical job. I worked shit entry-level jobs before I proved myself and built a reputation in coding, to the point where my references trumped my education. My wife has a graduate degree and works in a management position. This created a bit of what I thought was friendly tension at the time. Early on, I bitched about middle management. I saw them as roadblocks between me and finishing tasks. My wife saw middle management as necessary for directing personnel and resources. Personally, I was stuck with a bad string of middle managers that thought code developers were modular and replaceable. They set unreasonable deadlines, promised features to clients, and created scope creep. Every time I told her about the next boneheaded thing my manager instituted, she always took his side. Note: she never met him. He sees things you don't, she says. After about a year of dating, I learned to stop telling her about my day at work if it doesn't involve days off or raises. I always felt like she resented the fact I didn't go back to school for a 4-year of graduate degree. She pushed about it early on before marriage, but when I broke down the loans and debt, she dropped it. She was relatively debt-free when we married, as was I. As I said, we were pretty close in earning power as well. About 2 years ago, I started working for a company that had an owner that talked to me directly. He saw value in me and my potential. I now make 50% more than my wife, and my manager is a guy that works well with me. While not a technical lead, he embodies what a scrum master should be. I would say he knows how to stay out of my way, but that makes it sound adversarial. He's a great supervisor. The first 4 years of marriage went great, overall. I didn't complain about manager's form work, and she didn't push me to dump thousands into a piece of paper in debt. We had fun, went on date nights several times a month, shared hobbies, cooked together, read books together, and watched movies together. When the first lockdown hit, we both worked from home. Our house is really nice, with 3 spare bedrooms, 4 if we eventually had kids. One was already converted into an office for me, and when lockdown started, we converted the second one into an office for her. We both telecommuted, but we both had very different philosophies about it. I would get up, make breakfast, shower, shave, dress in a suit, then walk into my home office. I hate suits and ties, by the way, but it does put me in the mental state of, okay, this is work time. My wife, however, rolls out of bed, eats breakfast, brushes her teeth, puts on a t-shirt and sweatpants, and goes into her office with the iPad to play Candy Crush between emails. I guess I see it as work from home and she sees it as work from home, and I digress. It's the weirdest thing how proximity can create distance. She has several meetings a day, and I can tell because she keeps her door wide open and I can hear them. I have 1 meeting a day, a scrum, and it's short. I close my door for mine. 5 months ago, she said she felt insulted that I close my door for the daily scrum. I explained that it's for peace and to keep my mind focused on work. She said she felt like I was hiding something. I tried to keep up our hobbies together, but she brushed it off as we see each other all day as is. I should have pressed, but I didn't. I treated the lockdown as temporary, and maybe I shouldn't have. It got really bad when her company instituted a partial office reopening. She jumped at the chance to be part of the 50% of the company back in a rearranged office to allow social distancing. I don't blame her. I miss working at the office too, but my company hasn't opened up the offices yet, and as long as I have access to my dev environment, it really isn't needed. I think several of her other coworkers got into her head. She would stay after work to hang out with them, have drinks at a coworker's place. I pressed and wanted to know more, but she was secretive and guarded. She became colder and colder too. It felt like I had a roommate and not a wife at that point. Last month, on a weekend, she put her old iPad on the desk and said, "Can you wipe this? I want to gift this to my niece." I shrugged. I often do that sort of thing for the family and didn't think much about it. Off she went to another company gathering, and I switched on the iPad. Maybe my wife was becoming so brazen, maybe she thought I wouldn't check it and just do a factory reset. Point is, I checked it and saw her messaging app. Pics, videos, IMs with her boss. They've been having an affair for 2 months. I can't describe the feeling in my veins. It was like my blood turned to ice. It reminded me of the scene in Equilibrium where the polygraph flatlined. I copied everything, packaged it into cloud storage I use for dev projects separate from work, and started looking for a lawyer. I didn't confront at first because I wasn't sure what I would do. The new sensation in my body felt like I was both numb and walking through water. She didn't notice or didn't care. By that point, we were already dead bedroom. We were really in the roommate stage, I guess. I contacted a lawyer, and he wanted to keep investigating and me to keep my mouth shut. He suggested I get a private investigator and suggested a good one. For the last 4 weeks, we were gathering evidence, and he was preparing the filing for divorce. Be patient, he kept telling me, and my ice-filled veins and her indifference made it easy at first. Yesterday, my lawyer told me he had the filing almost ready. Our state is at fault, and the PI got photos, video, plus the texts. It was pretty much a slam dunk. Then last night, I don't know what happened to me, but the ice turned to fire. She came home, late of course, and I don't even remember what she said to me, but I went off. I said I hoped it was worth fucking her boss. She turned mean, nasty, vindictive. She said I wasn't there for her emotionally. I was just lounging all day at home, even if I was earning the lion's share at home. I wasn't intellectually stimulating, even though I work a highly technical job. I told her I had a lawyer and she laughed. She said my bluff was pathetic. There was no way I was leaving her, that even if I divorced her, she would get half my paycheck. If I stayed with her, at least I would get to occasionally have sex, so I shouldn't mess this up. She was a different person. I said to her, "That's not a marriage." She laughed again. "Honey, this is the 21st century. A woman can have her cake and eat it too." She laughed again and she went to bed. I emailed my boss and said I needed a week off to handle a family issue. He, of course, granted it. I slept on the couch in my office. This morning she left as I was getting dressed and only said, "Don't wait up." I went to my lawyer's office and he said he had the papers ready. He had a process server with him and asked how I wanted the papers served. I told him. My lawyer, bless him, laughed and said, "You better not. I've had so many people want to do a cutesy or revenge serving and I always talk them out of it. Judges don't have a sense of humor." He told me how this could cost me alimony or assets. I didn't care. Her words burned me. I wanted her burned back. The lawyer did his best to keep telling me not to, but he relented when he saw how serious I was about this. The process server, he heard my idea. He laughed as well and said, "You're my hero." I had to special order something with a rush cost, sent the process server to pick it up and deliver that with the papers to my wife's work. Process server told me what happened when he was done. He said he had to. He said he showed up at her office with a large box and papers. He found my wife talking and laughing with a group of coworkers and friends and asked her name. She confirmed and asked what it was about. He put the box on a nearby desk and opened it. It was a cake, one that you could get a custom image printed on in frosting. I didn't even know that was a thing until this morning. The image was an image of my wife and her boss in an embrace, clothed, but obvious what they were doing, with the words, "Here's your cake, eat it," piped in icing above the image. Process server put the papers next to the cake box on the table. "You've been served." He said what happened next was a loud screech from her. At least 8 people in the office saw the cake. My wife freaked and swatted the large cake box off the table, where it fell on the carpet, but with the image still visible. Several of her coworkers started berating her, and she started crying and screaming. The process server took a hasty retreat. My phone blew up and I just kept sending her to voicemail. I don't bother reading her texts. She hasn't come home, but her mother texted me saying she is going to stay over there for now. The euphoric rush of the cake felt great. But as the hours pass, I am considering my lawyer's words now. Did I fuck this up? I am overwhelmed with all the support I've gotten in the past week. I'm still off from work. My boss decided to give me 2 weeks instead of the one I requested. Good man, he is. I've already split our savings in half, put half in an account in my name, and changed auto pay for the mortgage, credit freezes, etc. Everything my lawyer advised me to do with the household funds. First off, we have no kids. Second, I'm seeing a therapist to help me. I found one that is well versed in helping with infidelity. Seen him twice, and I'm feeling a lot more balanced out. Still some weird low points, but nowhere near the same amount of swing between the two. After the cake stunt, I'm definitely taking my lawyer's advice on anything from this point forward. He said, "You can be happy or you can be right in regards to taking his advice," and I get that now. He told me that if my wife wants to return home, that I'm not legally allowed to kick her out, but I should record all interactions with her. She's not staying at home again, still at her mom's, but she did want to come by Saturday to talk. My lawyer told me I could, but said he would prefer if she wants to talk to have it done at his office, with her own lawyer present as well as himself. I presented this to her, in email of course, and she responded that she didn't have a lawyer. My lawyer said, barring showing up at his office, have witnesses, and record the meeting. I let my wife know this was my condition to talking with her. She actually accepted. So I had 2 mutual friends come in, all 3 of us with our phones on the table ready to record. She came in and tried to give me an awkward hug, but I just held my hand up and the phone started to record as the 4 of us sat down at the kitchen table. She was actually apologetic. She said she felt like she was watching a movie versus being in charge of her life, but it felt thrilling and with a rush. She asked if I wanted to know why. I said I really didn't care at this point. She felt that she owed that much to me and told me. She said that when she started going back to the office when it reopened, she got really close to 3 female co-workers, each a few years older than her, and 2 of them divorced. She said they wormed their way into her head, told her about how she's owed more than she's getting. They asked her constantly about her home life. The ringleader apparently was psychoanalyzing me from my wife's stories. My wife told them about my issue with managers back in my early career, and the ringleader took this to mean I'm threatened by educated people. The ringleader told her that I was a submissive male and she needed a take-charge man in her life, that if I found out, I might have shouted and threatened, but get in line. My wife still has her job for now, but only just. The people that saw the cake was my wife, the 3 witches, her affair partner, boss, and a cordnig to her 2 other co-workers that were lateral to her. The boss immediately ended the affair, told her to only communicate with him in email, and that if she ever tried to show up in his office alone, he would call in a co-worker immediately. The 3 witches turned on her immediately and publicly berated her for doing such an awful thing. The other co-workers, according to her, didn't want to get involved with her soap opera. So, no reports to HR. She said her 3 friends doing a 180 on her immediately sort of shook her out of her fog. She seemed really ashamed and said she had to ask for $5 grand. I was confused, because there was money left in her account. I made it a point that she had it. She was living with her mom. She didn't have any major expenses. It turns out the ringleader and the other 2 witches wanted to be paid for their silence. They're blackmailing her and gave her a deadline, lest HR will know all the sordid details. She was pleading for help. I told her that there is no going back to normal after this. Everything will change. That if she bends now, it will be more money later. Best for her to report herself, her boss, and her co-workers. It would work better than having sleepless nights waiting for the knife to fall. She seemed to hem and haw on that, but she did finally ask the big question. What about us? Where does that leave us? I told her there was no us. That's done, and she best get herself that lawyer to go over the divorce. The best I can do is tell her how to handle her work situation, but she most likely needs to find another career after this. I also said she needs to go to therapy herself, because someone who could go to laughing in my face to pleading for help a week later needs help sorting themselves out. She pointed out the cake, and all I said to that was, yeah, and I am seeing someone for that. She left soon after that. No word on if she will follow my advice or try to pay her co-workers blackmail. Why is it always the co-workers? First week back at work, and my boss decided to tell everyone we could get off at noon today for Good Friday Easter weekend. I'm doing a lot better. I'm still seeing an individual therapist, and last weekend I drove out into the rural roads to unwind and saw a dog breeder as I was driving by and was curious. Stopped in. He was an Asian fellow and had a breed of Asian dogs I've never seen before. He was telling me about how they were extremely loyal and brave. After playing with a few of them, I am considering going back to buy one, even if they are extremely pricey. I believe they're called Gingdos. The wife always entertained getting a dog, but she never found a breed she liked. Anyways, the wife still has not moved back in or made any direct attempts to contact, but she did get a lawyer. My lawyer called me and said something like, "Buckle up, you're going to visit a marriage counselor." I said I didn't want to see one. The divorce was happening no matter what. He agreed, but then said, "Normally, I'd tell the other attorney to pound sand, but now I have to paint you as a reasonable person, so you have to entertain reasonable requests. This is why you should listen to your attorney." If I held back my anger, I would have been able to ignore this request. He did give me advice for this session. Don't admit fault. Don't concede I failed anywhere. Don't agree to anything, not even a second session. Just attend this session, and if I wanted to still divorce, answer questions as neutrally as possible. Don't yell, don't shout, don't accuse. The visit, if it could be called that, was via Zoom. Me in my home, and my wife in her mother's home, and the counselor in what appeared to be an office. It was interesting. The counselor was interested in spreading blame. Surely you could see how distance could create need. I simply said, I don't agree. It takes two people to create a rift in a marriage. Yeah, her and her boss. Holding on to this is staying in the past. There could be a wonderful future. Past behavior is a good indicator of future behaviors, stuff like that. I wouldn't pretend for a second that I played mind games or ran circles around her because I didn't. I just didn't engage more than I had to. It was 2 hours of her and my wife just trying to make me take even 10% of the blame, so she can say, see, it was both of your faults, now let's rebuild, or something like that. Near the end of the session, the counselor asked me why I was acting so cold. I said something along the lines of, did you know infidelity can create the same mental damage as PTSD? The counselor said, I heard something like that before, yes. The session's time was running out, and I was about to sign out when my wife asked if I was good with attending another session next weekend. I said I didn't think that was a good idea. She then begged what it would take for me to agree for a session next week. I said goodnight and signed off. Now I'm just waiting to see what the next reasonable request is that I can't turn down, just so my lawyer can paint the picture that I'm a well-adjusted guy that had one outburst of bad behavior versus a trend of bad behavior. Fiancé cheated on me in a gym. It's been nearly a year since it happened, and I still haven't processed it properly. I thought I had met my dream girl. She honestly came across as the sweetest and most innocent person, but she was living a double life right under my nose. We had been engaged for a few months and were very excited about starting our life together. We were quite young, in our 20s. I was working my butt off in 2 jobs to get us set up financially. She had a job, but it was a small salary and she was still studying on the side. I was extremely committed and wanted to give us a good life. We were trying to live a healthier lifestyle together by eating better and exercising regularly. The topic of getting a gym membership then came up. We discussed each getting a membership so we could go to the gym together. Anyway, then one day she told me out of the blue that she had signed herself up at a different gym instead of the original one we planned on going to. I didn't think much of it and didn't mind. I thought it was a bit weird, but I was happy to gym alone at the original one. Her new gym was too far away from where I lived. We weren't living together. So a little while goes by, about a week. She's gone to the gym a few times. I've been nice, asked if she's enjoying it, etc. All seems okay, but she starts acting a bit weird. She is being distant and snappy, and I don't know why. A few days pass and it just gets worse. She starts becoming extremely aggressive towards me for no reason and wouldn't open up. This started to give me a very suspicious feeling and I wanted to figure out what was going on. So I did some digging and remembered that she logged in onto her Instagram a while ago on my computer. I checked and thankfully still had access to her account, but what I found was horrifying. I found a long chat between her and a guy who worked at the gym. The chat spanned over a week or so and started fairly casual, like, thanks for helping me sign up, etc. But then it got very sexual very quickly. I had to read about the things they wanted to do to each there and then the things they did do to each other. And guess where they hooked up? In the gym's office. I was disgusted, shocked, and literally sick to my stomach. I phoned her immediately and told her what I found and that it was over. She first denied it, but when she realized I saw the chat, she just hung up on me. Also, I don't mean this in a nasty way, but the guy she hooked up with was really not a typically attractive guy. I'm a good-looking guy. Tall, green eyes, dark hair, and toned. She went for a slob over me, and I can't understand why. I then phoned her parents to tell them what happened. At first they said, "That's impossible. She's nothing like that." I then sent them the chat. After they took a while processing it, they tried to shift blame onto me. They said I neglected her and was too busy with work. WTF? I was working hard to provide for her. She never took accountability and never even apologized to me. Haven't spoken to her since. It feels traumatic. Wife of 4 years had an affair with my stepfather. Haven't said any of this out loud or typed it out to anyone besides my family and therapist. Here goes nothing. I'm gonna give the full background so everything falls into place. My wife, 26F, and I, 26M, have been together since we were both in 7th grade middle school. We went through all of high school and the same college together with 0 breaks or time offs. We always had a strong connection and loved each other throughout those 9 school years. Everyone in our classes knew we would get married. Got voted that at prom LOL, I proposed our junior year of college, and we got married after graduating. We were both 22. My parents got divorced when I was 6. Then my mom remarried when I was 15. Mom was 48 and he was 52. He was a basketball player, played 4 years at a D1 college, and played overseas for 5+ years. Never was good enough for G League or NBA. But he had married my mother after all that and is a roofer ever since. He is 63 now. Me personally, I'm 5'6" and never played any sports throughout school. Don't get me wrong, I always made sure to stay in shape and always went to the gym regularly my entire life. But I never competitive sports, mainly because of my height. Anyways, so basically my wife has known my stepfather for as long as I have. Anytime he would see me, she would be with me. Fast forward now, we're 4 years into marriage and 1 child, 2 years old. My mother lives less than 5 minutes from us, so we always see them. My wife is an engineer and I work in pharmaceutical sales. My schedule is always different daily, but I'm mainly always working 8 to 4, most of the days coming after 4. One day I had nearly half my sales closed early and was headed home around 1. I pull in and see my stepfather's car parked in the street down from us. At first, I thought, oh, he knows someone in the neighborhood. I go home and I always walk in through the side door, not the garage, quicker to get in. Coincidentally, there's no ring camera there. I walk in and right away just hear loud sus noises. I go upstairs quietly, open our bedroom door, and see my 26F wife having sex with my 63-year-old stepfather in our bed. The worst part was they couldn't even hear me open the door, so it was maybe 12-15 seconds of me just standing there, jaw-dropped, speechless, maybe 5-6 FT away from them. Her only single repeated answer to why she did it was, I just needed something different. Until this day, I never know when it started. I keep assuming minimum 5+ years since they have known each other for 11 years. I'll probably never know, going through the divorce process now. And honestly, I felt 100x worse for my mother. The pain she's also in is terrible. And yes, I did get a paternity test, and the child is mine. But in summary, I never felt being less of a man till now, but working on a better self. Girlfriend cheats with my boss. About 22 years ago, I was working at a packing plant and had just ended a 4-year long-term relationship where I was cheated on, put her to the curb and started dating again. I met this recently divorced girl at work who was the receptionist. She was cute and a lot of fun, so we started seeing each other. Everything was going well, but I wasn't serious about anything long-term. She would drop hints about moving in together, and I just never could pull the trigger with her. Something was wrong. We got really busy at work, and I was volunteering for as much OT as I could to make extra money. I worked evenings and my crew was small and we were really close. One night, one of my guys said he saw my boss's car at my girlfriend's apartment building. Since he lived about 30 miles away, I knew something was up. I had worked for him the previous weekend, and my girlfriend ended up going to the casino that weekend since I got called into work, lol. I knew something was up, so I walked up to her door and knocked. She asked, "Who is it?" I said, "It's me, baby. I dropped by to see how you're doing." I had a few minutes. She opened the door and let me in, and he was nowhere to be seen. I asked him to step out, and he did. I asked what was going on and how long. They said they had been hooking up for about 2 weeks. My boss, who was recently divorced, was having hell with his ex. I had felt sorry for him up to this point. I said, well, I didn't appreciate the high school bull crap, and that I didn't care if he saw her. If he wanted a turn, he could have just told me, and we could have been adults about it. He apologized about it, and then I told him that I didn't want this to interfere with my OT. I still wanted to work as many weekends as I could. He said no problem, I never at any point acknowledged my soon-to-be ex's existence. She immediately became invisible and unable to make sound in my presence. She kept trying to get my attention and apologize, but I never responded to her in any way. Between his messy divorce and my girlfriend, my boss had been dating this cute young girl about 20 that worked at the plant. A few days later at work, she asked me what was going on. I told her about what happened, and she was a little hurt. I told her that it was good she found out now before it was more serious. She said we should go out and piss them off, which we did, and she was a freak. I had a lot of fun with her. One day in the office, while my boss was in there, one of my coworkers asked me how my date went. I said it was great, and possibly the best trade I had ever made. No regrets. My boss just got up and walked out. We didn't speak other than business for about 2 weeks. On Fridays, we sold employee sales to employees. The employees would go to the receptionist and pay and get a ticket to bring to us, and we would give them their food. My boss said, "Hey, I'm going to take these 10 boxes, 10 lbs, and I'll pay for them up front on my way out." The road out went right past the receptionist office so I could see if he paid or not. He did not. Drove right past. Since he had seemed to make this decision on the fly, I called the plant accountant and asked him to check the cash box and the tickets to see if there were any there for my boss. I was suspecting that my ex would just fill out the tickets and have them ready, and that way we couldn't catch her unless the box was short. No tickets had been made, so he just got in trouble and was eventually fired. Later, she was being scrutinized and seemed to be short in the cash box but unable to tell for sure. So they had someone come in and pay for food with a $100 bill. Since there were no big orders done the rest of the day that would have required $100 as change, and since the $100 bill was missing from the box at the end of the day, they knew she was skimming. She got fired. I replaced boss as the superintendent of the department. I got rid of a cheating girlfriend, had freaky sex with his ex and got to brag about it to his face, got rid of same cheating boss, got 2 thieves fired, got a promotion, and still got to keep my OT. Things usually don't work out that well for me, but that was priceless. When cheating is not cheating, I wanted to post my story here, because this sub is filled with poor souls who have experienced the worst of the worst of the worst. I was one of you once. I walked in on my first X-balls deep in another woman on my bed once, but this cheating story I want to share is different. I want to give the other end of the cheating spectrum, and why you're always valid for leaving over any level of infidelity. I'm 2 for 2 on cheating husbands, but this time the pain is in my hands and on my terms. My ex was raised by a single mom. His dad left his mother with 3 young boys to pursue a younger woman and new family, and my ex always said he would never cheat because of how it destroyed his mother. I believed him. When we first met, he confessed he's been sexually active with over 500 women. I believed him. But this was a red flag to me. When I asked why me out of 500, he always told me I'm marriage material, mother material, that I love him for him, unlike those other women who only cared about dick and money. I shouldn't have quieted that place in my mind that said red flag, but I did. But aside from that, he was perfect until he wasn't. I found flirty messages on his phone to 4 different girls. The girls weren't even flirting back, just being friendly. But his messages made him seem like a single man out to get laid. No insinuations of an affair were made, and I highly doubt he physically cheated, but the act of seeking out other women for romance? I couldn't suffer it. I confronted him calmly and ended it right there. In his defense, he's playing the role of the perfect, remorseful gentleman. He hasn't blamed me, lied, gaslighted, or diminished my feelings. He immediately fessed up to the flirting and did everything right. He told me there is just too much temptation out there and he was only seeking validation due to low self-esteem, and it isn't my fault. But it isn't enough, and that's okay. He told me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself to you. You're perfect and I'll never stop working to deserve you. I'll go to therapy. I'll give you my phone. I'll delete social media, etc. But what about me? What about my life with you? Am I to spend the only life I've got with a man I'll never trust? If you have to spend a lifetime trusting someone, what is the point? The foundation is shattered. And if I am so perfect, then why wasn't I enough in the first place for you? I won't be with a man who has to completely delete social media just to behave. I won't build the foundation of a family with a man who is made of sand. And I'm not jealous. I don't care about him talking to women, but I care when he disrespects our relationship to seek out romantic extracurriculars. He would never tolerate me texting another man, "Hey there, sexy." So I left. I left my marriage over flirty Instagram messages because I won't spend my life looking over my shoulder. I would rather be alone than miserable. And for people who still enjoy the high of flirting with strangers, just because you don't fuck doesn't mean it isn't cheating. Flirting busts holes in foundations, and those foundations are a hell of a lot harder to repair than they are to build. So do yourself a favor and don't get in a relationship if you still desire this kind of narcissistic validation. It's okay if you're single, but not if you're taken. And if you've ever been told that leaving over harmless texts is just throwing a relationship away, do yourself a favor as well and find someone worth building a future with. That's all. And to my ex-husband, one day when your beautiful blue eyes are covered in cataracts and your muscles turn to flab and your thick dark hair starts to thin and fall out, I hope you're happy. Because the high of sexting pretty girls and having them respond will fade quickly. One day, if you don't change, you're going to look around and find an empty household. Money, attractiveness, material possessions. It never mattered love. I hope you learn that lesson before it's too late. I would have been there, and I think you know it. But I will never be a doormat. Best of luck in your Tinder endeavors. I am many things, but I am not one of 500. If he accuses you of cheating, let me paint the picture. My husband and I have been together for 19 years. He was my very first boyfriend at 18 years old, and we lost our virginity to each other. We were inseparable and a model of love and a healthy relationship to our friends. About 5 years ago, I gave birth to our son after years of infertility. It was truly a miracle. This is when things got difficult. My husband was now the breadwinner as I began my new role as a mom. When my son was a year old, I experienced a miscarriage. This was right after I stopped breastfeeding and my hormones were a wreck and depression was really sinking in. My husband felt I was pulling away from him and started investigating. For the next 3 years, he accused me of cheating on him with all our guy friends. Then he thought I had a boyfriend. His thoughts morphed into thinking I was a prostitute, entertaining men during nap time. He set up hidden cameras and recording devices around the house to catch me. I felt so much pity for my husband. I encouraged him to go to therapy because his ability to thinking rationally seemed compromised. We tried couples counseling, but the accusations continued. The emotional abuse continued. Intimacy was strained because he was looking at me like a slut, but felt like I had to please him to help him feel better. Last year, I listened to my gut and I did not sleep with him for about a month. My depression was at its worst, and I was starting Lexapro. At a small get-together with friends, my husband went on a walk with my best friend, the wife of his best friend. They have an open relationship, and it was overheard that she was telling my husband that humans are not meant to be monogamous. I noticed her touching his knee too comfortably, and I felt like vomiting. They planned a game night, and my husband planned to spend the night. Since the game was so long and boring, I wasn't invited. I am not stupid. My husband was too excited about this night and had really been looking forward to it. Right before he left, I asked him not to sleep with her. He seemed shocked and flabbergasted that I would even mention something so wild. I told him if I didn't say it, I would regret it later. Even while I was showing apprehension, he still left. He returned the next day, and after being awkward for hours, he finally told me what happened. This almost 40-year-old tells me he hooked up with her. Using such casual language when up to this point we had only ever had sex with each other. I have since moved out, but he is determined to win me back. I am not sure I could endure more of this toxic relationship. The next chapter is very scary. I have never dated another person in my life, but even being alone has to be better than this kind of emotional abuse. My parents want me to work it out with him. My friends are supportive of me and happy I've finally left. Healing can be lonely and scary, but I am hoping for a better future for me and my son. Ex cheated with our pastor. I was married to first wife for about 9.5 years when I joined the local sheriff's office as a deputy. I was attending the academy. I was at home more often than usual, as classes were only from 8 to 5 during the week. I finished the academy and returned to shift work at the local jail. Night shift, 12-hour shifts. 2 months later, I got a weird feeling that something wasn't right. My wife kept spending time with pastor's wife sewing and crafting. I was off duty and have to change my sleep schedule. I'd go to bed with wife but couldn't sleep. I went to restroom and saw a text on her phone at midnight. It was the pastor. Thinking it must have been an emergency, I picked it up and read it. It read, "Good night, my love." I was floored, tried to find other texts, but she had deleted them. If it was innocent, the older texts would have been saved. I woke her up at 1 a.m. to ask, "WTF?" She basically said it must be a typo, and why I was snooping. She turned tables on me and got defensive, kicked me out of our bedroom for a month and a half. I thought I had screwed up. I was so stressed I lost 35 lbs in a month, couldn't eat, sleep, a real basket case. I got us counseling, recommended by the pastor. She had me apologizing to him for even thinking that anything was going on between them. She wouldn't talk to counselor, except for quoting Bible verses. She tried to play the high holier than thou. After the month and a half of this, I saw her diary out unguarded. She had been so guarded of it and her phone since it all hit the fan. I read how she and him were in love and had to sneak around to be together, and that his wife knew. I calmly went to her and said, "You were right for hiding your diary from me. I just read it." Her jaw hit the floor, suddenly got all apologetic. She said, "I never meant it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you. Call him now. I want to talk to him." She called and I demanded to meet him in the morning. I did at a local fast food restaurant. I walked in with my phone in my pocket on record. I recorded our conversation, legal where I live. He admitted to the inappropriate relationship. He was such a hypocrite he regularly preached against infidelity and how he wouldn't counsel a woman alone due to people thinking the wrong thing. I let him speak enough to give me evidence. I was livid, hardest thing I ever had to do. I tried even harder to keep my marriage together, but I'm pretty sure the cheating continued. I moved out to keep my job safe so there wouldn't be any way she could lie and try to start a domestic violence issue and I'd lose my job. People at church asked her where I was for weeks. She lied and said I was working. They contacted me and I wouldn't lie for them. It took a while, but it all came out, and he left the church he founded 25 years ago and started working in fast food in his mid-50s. It took years for me to finally get over it, but it's messed me up as far as trusting people, especially preachers. Posting this not to be malicious, just sharing for others to read and hope it helps in some way for others going through same.